what we wanted to do today is a fair bit of work around, actually, as Rob said, developing our cross-institutional mentoring and education program. But we wanted to start with an overview of some best practices in mentoring. And at NUSC, they developed some programs that we've been trying to implement, that they've used as part of their CTSA, things that they know are successful, and perhaps that they've tried and not told us about because they didn't work as well. And there's also a challenge because NUSC is a more traditional university setting, so much of the mentoring program and practice is what do you do with postdoctoral fellows to get them off on a good career trajectory into their early faculty development, whereas at both Nemours and Christiana, we have this slightly different situation of clinical, very busy clinicians, and how do you protect clinical time that the institutions may depend on for their revenue in a non-teaching model. How do you find that time? How do you develop those research skills? How do you deal with adult learners, either physicians who've already spent way too much time in training, right? And help them learn the skills they need for this. So to talk a bit about best practices of mentoring and what we know about what works, we've invited Helen Pearson from Temple University. Helen is she's in the Department of Anatomy and Cell Biology at Temple University, and she's also the Associate Dean for Faculty Development at the Temple University School of Medicine. So she was an undergrad at Durham University in England, and then did her PhD at the Medical College of Pennsylvania. Back when it was still Medical College of Pennsylvania. And then did postdoctoral training as well. She has many awards for both her teaching and mentoring as well as her research, and we're very pleased to have her here to give us an overview of best practices and then work with us to jointly answer questions about what works and what doesn't work in the world of mentoring.
So my main focus, being in the Office of Faculty Affairs, my focus is really on faculty. I'm not going to be saying really anything about graduate students or postdocs, as important as their mentoring needs are. I'm just going to be focusing on faculty for today's talk. So, complying with the financial conflict of interest policies, I have nothing to disclose. So the outline to the presentation that I'll be giving today is that I'll just be giving an overview of some of the main issues as I see them in faculty mentoring right now. And then, in line with the theme of the retreat here today, I'm going to give some very specific examples about what I consider to be best practices, or hopefully will turn into best practices. Most of those examples are from Temple, but one of them is a program that I've been part of as part of one of the AAMC affinity groups. So what is mentoring? I'm sure you're aware that there are many different definitions that many people have been struggling with coming up with a good situations. Voc et al. is a group at Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, and they have done a study looking at trying to measure the effectiveness of faculty mentoring. And they came up with a broad definition of mentoring as when a faculty member has useful experience, knowledge, skills, and wisdom, and then is able and willing to offer that advice, information, guidance, support, or opportunity to another faculty member for that individual's or the mentee's professional development. So the impact of faculty mentoring, it seems in general to be a good thing. We all think of it in a positive light. Faculty mentoring must be good. But there has been a study by Danda was presented at the 2011 Post-International Conference on Faculty Development in Health Professions, Why Mentoring Matters. And the conclusions that they came to from their literature review was that faculty mentoring does lead to improved job satisfaction and career satisfaction among junior faculty. It gives them a better sense of fit within their organization, within their department, within their school, within the more larger community. They also demonstrate greater productivity, and because of their increased job and career satisfaction, there tend to be higher retention rates among those faculty that have received mentoring. So Danda went on to develop these guidelines, which they're really evidence-based through this literature review. So their recommendations for either establishing a new mentoring program or continuing to refine an existing faculty mentoring program, these are guidelines that they suggest are most likely to produce positive outcomes. So their first recommendation is setting up the program for success. They recommend establishing a task force. They recommend reviewing best practices to come up with an overall program policy or white paper for the development of the program. Also, it's important to ensure that there's leadership support for the mentoring program, and that the program that is proposed or continued to be developed is in line with institutional priorities. The ground rules of participation involve making sure that everybody understands their commitment. It is a time commitment. The mentors need to be willing to put the time into it, so do the mentees. There are also other ground rules such as confidentiality. Also that the program is voluntary. Neither the mentors or the mentees should be coerced into participating in their mentoring program. Training and incentivizing the mentors is very important. We certainly, I think many of us feel that we don't need training to give advice, but really to give structured, meaningful advice that can facilitate another junior faculty person's career. It's really critical that the mentors are willing to be trained. And having an effective training program is critical. Another piece is incentivizing the mentors. It's lovely if people are willing to do this for the good of humanity, just purely altruistic reasons. But unfortunately, given the pressures that we're all under, many of us are under pressure to obtain more grants, publish more papers, see more patients, teach more contact hours, whatever it is our responsibilities are. And so asking people to do mentoring for love is not always practical. So trying to come up with something meaningful that will really incentivize people to want to participate is a good thing. Also conducting Similarly, mentees can complete questionnaires or also indicate in some way their interest in the areas that they feel they need mentoring on. So carefully matching mentors and mentees based on their interests, among other things, is an essential piece. Also holding an orientation session. This is even part of the training for the mentors to make sure that everybody has similar expectations. Oftentimes these programs aren't successful or don't continue, they're not sustainable because of unrealistic expectations or just unmet expectations. Clarifying the program's process in terms of how many meetings are going to be held, what kind of monitoring is being done, if there is an oversight committee or a task force in charge of the mentoring program. There may be some requirements for mentors and mentees to submit some kind of documentation that mentoring has occurred, at least the meetings have occurred. Obviously what happens during the meetings is very confidential, but there can be some oversight of the program to make sure that the mentees and mentors are at least meeting. Monitoring the outcomes is always a challenge. Demonstrating that these programs are effective is very difficult. We can't do the control. You don't have the control group of the same people being unmentored versus when they're mentored. So. And then to incorporate the program into existing human capital systems, that means basically it has to do with the incentivizing of the mentors. That if there are performance-based review programs where as a senior faculty member, you're being rewarded based on your productivity, the patients you see, the hours that you teach, etc., then is there a way to incorporate mentoring as something that is going to be rewarded as well as the other things that you do? So there are different types of mentoring. There's a whole range of different types, formal programs that are very structured in their in content and in time frames, or just informal mentoring that can happen when a senior faculty stops by the office of the lab of a junior faculty and says, "Hi, how's it going?" Mentoring can occur either in a one-on-one setting or in a group where there's usually one senior mentor to a group of mentees. Sometimes there's a traditional senior, very experienced mentor with a junior, much less experienced mentee. Sometimes, depending on the subject matter, that can flip. And of course, the classic example is anything to do with technology. That usually it is the junior people who are much more familiar with new technologies and their application in education, etc., than the senior faculty. So in those kinds of situations, new techniques come along, new methodologies. It's often the junior people who then turn the tables and become the mentors for the kind of technologically deficient senior people. Bit of a stereotype, but in some cases can be true. Peer mentoring is another option where a group of relatively junior people actually meet and discuss certain issues, either their research interests or their just general career development issues among each other and help each other along, sharing what they have learned. Sometimes a peer mentoring group can be coordinated by a single senior mentor as well. So the issue, and Rob certainly mentioned this, the issue of single mentor versus multiple mentors, I will have a slide just on that in a few minutes. Whether or not it's good to have a single mentor need multiple mentors. Do we assign mentors to junior faculty, or do we encourage them to select their own? There are pros and cons to both of those systems. Is mentoring a short-term event? Maybe it could be. It could be a short-term activity that occurs around a particular goal that the junior faculty member has. If the junior faculty member wants to submit a grant for a certain deadline, they may have a short duration mentoring until the grant is submitted or until the grant is funded. Other kinds of mentoring relationships can be much more sustained and long-term. And then we have what I call targeted mentoring. That is, I'm sure I'm not the only one to call it that, but this is where mentoring is focused specifically on a group of individuals such as new hires. There may not be a mentoring program for everybody in the institution, or it may just begin as a mentoring program for the new recruits, with the hope that it will then be enlarged to cover the entire faculty. There's also mentoring that can be given to individuals who show tremendous leadership potential, basically the rising stars of the institution, and they can be given specific leadership training and development. Underrepresented minorities, I'll speak a little bit about that group of faculty in a few slides too. So this is the multiple mentoring slide where we all recognize that many faculty members wear more than one hat. So many of us are juggling different areas. We do teaching, we see patients, we do research, we do administration, and we're trying to juggle all of that at different times. So trying to multitask and make sure that we do develop our careers in these different areas can be very challenging in itself. And then how do we find a mentor that's going to be able to help us in all those different areas? And it's probably not practical just because there aren't that many mentors around. There's a bit of a dearth of mentors, especially good mentors. And apart from the fact that one mentor may not have the necessary expertise, it's very it's a great time demand on them. So does one mentor have the time to really focus on all of those different aspects of a junior person's career? So as far as underrepresented minorities go, there's increasing numbers of underrepresented minorities at the undergraduate level. But if you compare these expanding population of underrepresented minorities at the undergraduate level, it certainly does not translate so much into increasing at the graduate school level, at the postdoc level, and certainly into the ranks of the faculty. So it's a leaky pipeline that we have here. Universities are doing a pretty good job trying to increase the diversity of their faculty. But mentoring, or the absence of mentoring, can really defeat those efforts. It's fine, it's great to recruit underrepresented minorities into the faculty, but if they don't get the mentoring they need, and as I referred to earlier, the mentoring is producing the increasing job and career satisfaction, the better sense of fit, and that really applies to underrepresented minorities, that they don't feel comfortable in the institution. If they don't have the appropriate role models, there's clear evidence that it leads to the high attrition and turnover. So, the study by Zambrana et al. That came out just recently, actually, I forget the journal that it was published in, I'm sorry. But the paper, the study that they did used interviews and focus groups, and there were three main themes. They emphasized the importance of mentoring throughout in an individual's academic life course. So they're talking about everything from elementary school through middle school, through high school, and into graduate school or beyond. So they indicated that individuals who didn't get good mentoring and good role models, even at those very early stages of their education, were at a significant disadvantage in terms of establishing an independent career as a faculty member, or never made it into those further educational programs. Another barrier they found at research extensive institutions was that many barriers to the career development of underrepresented minority faculty was linked to the feeling that their research areas of interest were not respected or not valued, and also that their community-engaged scholarly activities were not valued or appreciated. So it was essential for them to have connections with mentors who could relate and understand the struggles that underrepresented minority faculty go through at predominantly white institutions. So the underrepresented minority faculty who were mentored were found to have greater opportunities for collaboration. There were greater opportunities for them to author scholarly books, papers, book chapters, books, etc. They got more invitations to attend conferences, and they also were able to benefit from a more structured annual career review. So barriers to effective mentoring. I thought the little graphic that I was able to pull up for this was an appropriate visual image of many of the barriers that we face with mentoring, that there aren't enough mentors. There aren't enough effective mentors. At some level, it's a numeric thing. It's just how many people are available and willing to do this. Do we have proper incentives? Do we have proper mentor training? If not, that tends to decrease the number of mentors even more. And another barrier can be that some mentees don't really appreciate the value of mentoring and feel that they can do it on their own. And so they may not be sitting in the room either. So put those things together and you have a row of empty chairs. So certainly best practices can be developed to focus on addressing those issues. Mentor incentives, anything from cash, a stipend never hurts, even just some mentoring recognition, a mentoring award. And certainly release time from other responsibilities. Recognition that what they're doing is valuable. Mentor training. If you try to research mentor training, there's very few programs that are actually publicized. Hopefully more institutions are doing it, but they just don't have the program online or otherwise available for review. There is one example that has been quoted, the faculty mentoring leadership program at Women's is a good mentor training program. They have monthly interactive meetings with these different topics that cover pretty much a broad range of mentoring issues. Another word that has been used for somebody who facilitates another person's career is a sponsor. And this definition is taken from the business world. Actually, this is a Harvard Business Review article. Forget a mentor, find a sponsor. And the definition of a sponsor here is a senior level champion who believes in your potential and is willing to advocate for you as you pursue the next raise or promotion. Whether you have a mentor or a sponsor, it's essential that that person be an advocate. So manuscript for a journal, and they have a promising mentee who they believe it has a lot of potential, and it's just a matter of time before they start taking on additional responsibilities. I'm sorry, I'd love to be able to review this paper. I'd love to be able to give this presentation, but I'm just so busy. This is the senior person now, acting as the advocate. But I know somebody who would be really good at this. Why don't you ask name of mentee to do this? And once, as a junior faculty, once your name is being put out there and you're being recommended by your senior advocate, then this is really a way that you can get recognition in your field, in your area of expertise, and really start to build your CV. So the examples I'm going to give you, we have a departmental program in our Department of Biochemistry. We have 3 different programs that address faculty mentoring in different ways throughout the school. And then we have I'm a member of the membership and nominating committee of the Group on Faculty Affairs with the AAC, and we developed a program for mentoring new members. So our Department of Biochemistry, this was initiated, developed, implemented by the faculty in the Department of Biochemistry. And they took several steps to develop a program that would be good for their new hires. So they created a faculty mentoring handbook, which collated all the different resources that a new faculty member needed in order to develop their career and look toward the tenure and promotion review down the line. So it was a place where they could collate all the different policies from the university, from the School of Medicine, and provide a kind of handy resource for faculty. And they coordinated with the chair of the department to assign mentors. So the program did have some successes and some benefits. The handbook turned into a really good resource. Some mentees actually did establish very good relationships with their mentors. And even the mentees that didn't really click with their mentors, their assigned mentors, by being part of this program, they were nudged into finding other people, another mentor that they did find were able to establish a productive relationship with. Some of the pitfalls and challenges that the program ran into was that there was a change in department chair. The chair who had been part of developing the program left Temple. There was an interim chair for a while who was very supportive of the program. And now we have a new chair in that department. So there's just that little bit of a question mark about how supportive the new chair is going to be. Hopefully he will be. And at the same time that was all going on, the main author of the handbook also left Temple. So there's the challenge of sustainability when leadership changes. There was mixed success with assigned mentors. So that is something to consider, whether it's a best practice to assign mentors or to encourage mentees to find their own. And the faculty also realized that it was probably not appropriate to think that one mentor could coordinate activities for an individual faculty member. And back to this multiple mentoring idea, that in the future there would be a greater emphasis on multiple mentors. Oh, no, I'm not done yet, sorry. Don't get too excited. So our second example, my second example, is our internal plan review program. And although this has been done informally in the past, it varied tremendously from department to department. Some chairs or center directors were very good at reviewing grants that were being developed by their faculty. This is a more structured program. Larry Goldfinger put this proposal together develop stronger proposals, and the idea, of course, is to increase grant funding in the school, as well as to encourage collaboration within the school by enabling people to see the whole range of research that's being done, or a broader range of research. The process is pretty simple. The faculty member puts their proposal, their draft proposal. Larry identifies 2 or 3 people to review it. They provide written critiques and are available for discussion. The reviewers are given points. We have a faculty performance matrix, which is one of these ways that we're all evaluated by what we're doing. And it actually, your score on the performance matrix determines your raise for the coming year. So if you do really well on the matrix, you get a bigger raise, and getting points for reviewing these drafts of grant proposals is helpful to people wanting to increase their matrix numbers. Another little piece that we have is recognizing mentoring, and a little incentive for mentors, as well as giving them matrix points. We also give recognition. So this has been going on for 4 years now, and it's the mentoring, it's the Women in Medicine Mentoring Award. So this is an award that can be given to either a male or a female member of the faculty, but the goal is to recognize mentoring of women faculty. So this is more of a targeted program. We were able to solicit nominations. We've had 7 nominations each year, and any track or rank is eligible. We have a fairly basic nomination packet. We don't want to make it too onerous for people to want to nominate people. And the nominations are reviewed by our Committee on the Status of Women Faculty, and they select the winner. And then the award is presented by the Dean at the annual Women in Medicine Development Program, and it is sent out as an announcement through the list. So there's a rather nice plaque that is given to the winner and a big prize. I say that with a tongue in my cheek. Every little helps, I guess. So we also have mentoring of tenure-track faculty at the School of Medicine. This is something we just started doing in a formal way this year. The way that the pre-tenure review works at Temple is that there's a university mandated mid-tenure review that it has to be completed by the end of the 3rd year. So tenure-track faculty are really being assessed on 2 years worth of work, because the review process begins at the beginning of the 3rd year. So the dossier is submitted, it's reviewed by the Tenure and Promotion Committee, and then a recommendation is sent to the Dean. The Dean writes a recommendation. Actually, I write it for him, but he signs it, and it goes down to the President's office. And then the faculty member is issued a letter, which is also a contract renewal. Everybody's on a 3-year contract initially. And the determination based on their dossier is whether they get a 1-year renewal, a 2-year renewal, or a 3-year renewal. And it used to be that all they did was get that renewal letter. And the letter did lay out the strengths and weaknesses of their credentials to that point. But there wasn't a face-to-face meeting. And we felt that this was really essential to have some direct feedback to the faculty member. So myself and the executive dean at the school have started meeting with these faculty. We've actually just completed, we had 14 people in this category of pre-tenure review this year. So we met with each of them individually. We gave them an opportunity to update what's been going on since their dossier was reviewed by the committee. And also for the dean and I to really lay it out in no uncertain terms for the ones that really needed a push. There were a few among that group. There was the spectrum. There were people who are doing just great and probably could be approved for tenure if it came up then. And there are people who are going to need the 3 years to really get their credentials where they need to be. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was getting the right message. And it was very productive to have this very frank discussion and an opportunity for the individual faculty members to ask the questions that they needed to ask. We actually used a review rubric to highlight strengths and weaknesses. I don't know if you can really read this, but this is just the first page. We reviewed everything in there, credentials under number 1, research, number 2, teaching, number 3, service. And to get tenure at the School of Medicine, the candidates need to be outstanding in both research and in teaching, and they need to be at least satisfactory in service. So we reviewed their credentials. It indicated either circled or checked the box where we felt that their credentials fit. And then the comments were, you need to submit more applications, you need to do this, you need to do that, or great job, keep it up, kind of thing. Also indicating for them resources that they could use, people to contact that might be able to help them. So this final example is a program that's quite close to my heart. It's this pilot mentoring program that my colleagues and I on the subcommittee, the membership and nominating subcommittee of the AAMC's Group on Faculty Affairs. So it started out surveying the members all of the members in the GFA, some of whom have been in this group pretty much as long as it's been in existence, and trying to assess the interest among the group in a pilot mentoring program for new members. And there was a very strong support for this idea. And the 2 goals are to orient new members to both the GFA and to the AAMC involved, and to educate GFA members about the available resources. So we set it up as a yearly pilot program, and we're just coming to the end of the first year. It's currently being administered through 6 mentoring circles, and these mentoring circles consist of 2 mentors and either 6 to 8 in that range of mentees. Each circle, we started this program off at the Professional Development Conference. This is an annual national meeting that the GFA holds. And at our last meeting in Boston, we put these circles together and we held an orientation session for the mentoring program. And then subsequent to the meeting, the annual meeting, has been a series of conference calls, teleconferencing, where these calls were based on a structured curriculum. So we sponsored the orientation session for the mentors and the mentees at the Professional Development Conference. The people who had answered our pre-conference email survey and indicated an interest in the program, either as a mentor or mentee, we were able to pre-assign those people we created 4 circles initially. And it turned out there was so much interest in the program, we had a bunch of extra people show up at the session that hadn't completed our survey. And so we created 2 additional specific agenda. It was a structured orientation session. We had introductions and overview. We did a little icebreaker activity, reviewed expectations, and then went on to suggestions for how to make the most of the GFA meeting. And the idea for this meeting was for the mentors in each circle to facilitate the experience of these new members, these mentees, through that meeting, and to help them make contacts, recommendations of what sessions to attend based on their interests. So this is just some graphics to kind of illustrate what we presented at the orientation session. We reviewed the program's goals. The monthly phone meetings had, as I said, a curriculum, so that each monthly phone call was going to cover different aspects of the GFA. So SC here stands for subcommittee, so each of the different GFA would be the focus of an individual monthly meeting. There would be a discussion of the Faculty Forward program. There would be discussion of resources and the annual meeting. And then a suggestion for what we felt was a good breakdown of the time for the phone calls. An hour's phone call, the topic of the month would probably take up about half the time, and then there would be plenty of time for other questions during that phone call. So our icebreaker was pretty straightforward. We had each of the mentoring circles at an individual table, and the icebreaker was tell me about your first job or one of your hobbies, something that wasn't necessarily focused on the job that you were doing at the moment. An emphasis on expectations was as this little graphic demonstrated, that significant cause of disappointment in really any program is when the outcome falls short of expectations. So the next activity after the icebreaker was to encourage the mentees to indicate their expectations. So examples were, I want to make good use of the time. I want the conversations to be productive. I want to make sure that everybody in the group gets the time to contribute. And I expect to learn about resources helpful to my goals. So everybody was given time to discuss what their expectations were and come to an agreement among the mentoring circle. We were quite proud of our little mentoring program orientation. We did a survey of the people who participated, and you can see that overall we were rated quite highly out of 5. The overall quality, and then specific questions about how much, whether enough time was allotted for different activities and whether they were helpful. We surveyed mentors and mentees 6 months after the orientation session at the Professional Development Conference. And the survey responses were quite encouraging. We found that one of the mentoring circles didn't seem to work very well. They were having tremendous difficulty getting all of the members of the circle to be available at the same time for the conference call. But the other 5 worked very well. Most of the members were participating every month. And they certainly appreciated the mechanism of being engaged in their GFA, in the organization, as well as in their first meeting. And they seem to indicate an intention to become more involved or to continue with their level of activity. And we're actually in the process of surveying everybody again right now. This is just my list of the members of the subcommittee who did this project, so I just wanted to give credit to everybody who participated in developing it, putting the orientation session together. We have actually had an abstract on this accepted for the next PDC meeting at the end of June in Puerto Rico, so we'll be presenting it there. So general conclusions, effective mentoring strategies can take many forms. There's no real one-size-fits-all strategy. Some strategies are easily transferable between different kinds of programs, and others really are not. And there may be a need for different programs or different strategies when it comes to both women and to underrepresented minorities. And a big challenge is always sustainability of a program, especially through leadership changes or the major changes of the institution. Look at our group that I started out by giving you the definition from their study. This is the group at Hopkins. Counselor Allen.
Hi, Mike Rosenthal, Community Engagement here for the Excel program. And great discussion. What I like most, I want to get the conversation going, which is why I grabbed mine, is I think the structure that you present is extraordinarily important. Having been both a mentor at times and an mentee at times, I've seen programs and people drift without the structure of setting it up. And it depends on how much infrastructure you want to give it, but a little nudge to keep people moving along the structured lines. I think that's more often where mentorship programs fall apart, and a little bit more depth in your experience with those things might be helpful.
I think you're absolutely correct, and it's sometimes the issue of the infrastructure. We all have limited resources, and when we go to the dean with another ask, it's often difficult to. We're just one of many groups asking for more, either administrative support or time release for people to be mentors, time release to do training. So it's putting the infrastructure in place is essential, but you have to go to your leadership with with a good program, a structured program, and really be able to sell the benefits of it to the leadership. Yes, we struggle with it all the time because we don't have a budget. we have a very small budget for all of our faculty development programs. So a lot of time we're trying to put together programs using whatever resources we have at hand. We don't have money to bring in many outside speakers. We don't have money for honorariums and travel expenses. And so we have to use homegrown expert, which we can do that. But the issue of giving release time for individuals, it's all about RVUs. And if you're trying to suggest that a clinical faculty member should be given RVUs for doing mentoring.
That's one way of doing it. I mean, there are several ways.
That's right.
That's one.
Right.
You have to give credit somehow and the support to do it.
Right. So we have kind of an RVU-based system for the clinical faculty, and the performance matrices for the basic scientists. So, if you ask a basic scientist at our school to do anything, the question is going to be, how many matrix points do I get for it? You create a monster, you kind of create a monster by these accountability, the bean counting approach. Some people absolutely despise these systems because that's what you get. Nobody does anything for the love of it anymore. Nobody does anything because it's good for the institution.
But it's our job to negotiate for the recognition,
Absolutely.
even if it's not counting the beans. It's someone who's
Absolutely.
involved in this important activity that's
Right.
not happening.
But when we are very being counted oriented. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of it, but that it is what it is, and you have to work within the system you have. So we have to come up with ways to either give matrix points or RVU equivalents or whatever way of doing it.
I just follow up and ask you, when you implemented these incentive systems, did you find you got the question is, when you implemented these incentive systems, did you get more mentors? And I would say willing mentors.
I think we're in the process of doing that. We've had matrix points for basic science mentoring for a couple of years now, and so I think that we have had a better response. We have had people who've been willing to take on mentoring, but it's been more department or center based that people are doing it. And we don't have a school-wide mentoring program. We have our focus on either the tennis track faculty, we have our award for women mentoring, but there's no program. We don't have a database to match mentors with mentees. either men or women. And so our program is a little bit fragmented, maybe. There are pieces of it in place, but we're trying to bring it together as a coordinated program with no resources,
So,
with
well,
limited
just
resources.
to follow up on that though, does the P&T committee give any credit for mentoring? Now that you have a way to quantify it,
No, right now.
are you thinking about that?
Well, the limitations that we have with tenure, we have tenured faculty, most of them are in the basic science departments. A few are in leadership positions in the clinical side. But tenure is regulated by the university. So the only people who can award tenure are the board of trustees. So everything that anybody who's on a tenure track has to, that feeds through from our school, it feeds to the university. So we have to be mindful of what is going on in the university. If they're not giving credit for anything at the university, it's not helpful for us to give credit for it because it's not going to fly when it goes down to the president's office. For the non-tenure track people, we have the ability to decide what to recognize and what not to recognize. And we haven't got it to the level where mentoring activities are being recognized for promotion. But I think that's a good suggestion. We should look into doing that. For example, when somebody's going up for professor, that to have a section on their in their dossier that speaks up to their mentoring activities would be, I think, beneficial.
Not all mentee relationships work.
Oh, absolutely.
And do you try to assess the relationship as it's going on? And how do you intervene when you find out things are not working?
So we don't have a structured program, so we are not, the Office of Faculty Affairs doesn't oversee mentoring. We encourage people to get mentoring, but it's informal. It's a program where we give a presentation on mentoring and tell everybody how great it is, but we don't assign mentors and mentees. The only way that was done was in the Department of Biochemistry, and they had, as I explained, they did have a success with it. Their oversight committee was trying to keep an eye on that and I don't actually know how much they intervened when it wasn't working or whether they just tried to encourage them to stick it out or to get more than, get multiple mentors. But it's definitely, I think it's pretty well established that there are problems with either one. That assigned mentors can be problematic, that if you put the onus purely on the mentee to find a mentor, many of them don't. They don't because they don't always think they need it.
So, and I'm just going to encourage everyone in the room to hold a couple of these thoughts for the afternoon work session on the orientation for mentees. And, this question about letting mentees know that, the plan will be, to some degree, what will the mentoring committee do? When can they let us know if there's an issue? How can we help reassign? What do we want our role to be in that? Because we do have a little bit more in the way of resources through the CTR, and a committee is charged with overseeing and measuring the success of these programs. Since, in some ways, we have a harder job because we're different institutions, we're different sets of tenure and promotion committees and institutional goals. And on the other hand, we have a somewhat easier job because we have a KCA, a key component activity, focused on mentoring that and some funding to back that up. So.
Another challenge with intervening with the mentor-mentee relationships is that they're supposed to be confidential, and you want to maintain that confidentiality. So when you're either surveying, some people survey there's a lot of the politics come to bear on it as well, where people don't want to create any enemies, which is usually a good strategy.
Great, so I think we're scheduled for a break. As Rob mentioned,